Sup?
Yo, it's Ned, the guy that sucks at intros.
I was going to see if you would botch it again. And I'm Nathan. We are your co-hosts of The Chairman. This is episode 5. Let's go. So, in good Ned fashion, what are we talking about today, man? In episode 5.
Yeah, dude. This is what I'm good for. You're good for the intro. I'm good for the setup, dude. We need to you always do the intro.
Perfect.
I'll always do the setup.
Deal.
Dude. Deal. 1-2 punch, bro.
We'll screw it up next
Yeah.
time.
Like I'll do the intro.
So it's a nice idea.
Yeah. I'm also screwing up the setup. No, but today I wanted to talk, and obviously the title of this podcast is You Don't Have a Marketing Problem, You Have a Conviction Problem. And this is really coming from a lot of just the conversations that I've had over my career, but also just in the development of market share. Just starting to hear like, oh yeah, we've got a marketing problem. We're not getting enough leads. Leads are coming in too expensive. They're not converting. And, you know, when I look at that and when you start to dig into the just intricacies of the marketing engine that the organization has, and you look at their attribution, and you look at their CRM and their automations and their landing pages and everything like that, and you start to realize that it's like, you're just saying the same shit everyone else is saying, and you aren't actually creating a movement, which we'll get into, but I think that's what marketing is. It's like getting people to move. And I would almost argue this, like, you know, oh, people aren't responding to our message. It's like, well, maybe you just haven't built something worth responding to.
For sure.
All right. And so, and we've already talked about, I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast yet, but we talk about the Dollar Shave Club guys a lot and how that era of like, hold up, you're coming out with a razor company? Like, what? This is the most saturated, and there is only like 3 big names. And these guys came out with an ad that just hit people in the feels, and 5 years later, they're selling for $1 billion, right? And so I think just as we're moving forward in the podcast, I thought this would be a really cool one to talk through today, because we've talked about culture, we've talked about scale, and it's like, hey, let's actually talk about how you go to market and how you become unforgettable, because I truly believe that marketing isn't about being liked. It's not about being safe. It's about being unforgettable and talked about around the water cooler, or I guess the virtual water cooler, which is now LinkedIn these days.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good stuff, man. I as you were sharing that, I even thought, I mean, this is World According to Nathan, but it's almost like you could title it or state it, you don't have a marketing problem, you have a branding problem. And I
pick which one's better, Kenya. I think mine's better.
right. No, of course. But like, I think it could be helpful to distinguish between the two a little bit.
Yeah.
Just the way I think, you know, for whatever it's worth.
If you're about to say branding is different than marketing, I would agree with you.
Yeah. Totally different. So, I mean, you know, they lead to one another and they're connected to one another. But I see branding as who you are. It's a DNA.
Leading with it.
Yeah, right. Shock. Right. So a lot of times when I say like I'm obsessed with branding, or branding's like my jam, or I'm all about brand, if it's not within the right context, it may sound like I'm all about marketing, but I'm really not marketing. In fact, I don't really understand marketing that well. I mean, I've learned, but I do understand brand, and I do understand branding. And if you take the word brand and branding and you kind of go back to some of its original roots, you know, a farm, a plot of land would brand its animals, its cattle, as its property, because if it wandered off and it was found, you'd want somebody to return it. And, you know, a cattle didn't know necessarily where it belonged in the sense of like culture and where it's going to spend the rest of its life before it's just slaughtered. Yeah, exactly. Right.
It gets a bolt through the foot.
Right.
Becomes my filet mignon.
Exactly. So like it's not the best analogy, and it might even be a little cruel. But if you're building that like 2% USDA culture, and
That
you're like
Wagyu, baby.
that ragu culture.
The Ragu culture is really easy.
Culture. The Wagyu culture. You're talking about from what I was saying the other day. Yeah. 'Cause I was in Scottsdale, which if you haven't been to Scottsdale, you're poor.
Yeah.
So, and it's very expensive there. And if you think it's expensive,
You're poor.
you're also poor.
So if you think about Scottsdale whatsoever
Yeah.
and just don't live within the city limits, you're poor.
You're a loser. No. But it was rather expensive, and it was just Wagyu everywhere. Like that was just their beef. I was like, man, this place is top notch. But anyway, so
Did you have Wagyu sushi while you were there?
No.
Have you ever had Wagyu sushi?
No.
Bro.
Am I poor?
Yeah.
I have not.
It was next level,
dude. This one place we went, it was the first place we went. And I'm sitting with like people I don't know, and it was like this Mexican place, but it was like high end.
Yeah.
They're like some dancing with fire and like a whole thing. So yeah, it was very swanky, but the server he was all right. But there was tacos and then there was like al pastor, which has always been
pork,
right?
Yeah.
And I love it. It's like my fave. So I was like, I want to do this. I'm like, but it says chicken. I'm like, yeah, I just want to get it in like its original form. So I was like, I'd like to do the al pastor tacos. I was like, can I do that with pork though? And he's like, oh, we are proudly a pork-free establishment.
What does that mean? I mean, like,
know.
how can you proudly be anti-pork?
Yeah, I just was like, is it Jewish? Is it Muslim?
yeah.
Like, what? I was like, okay. So, but like, he just wanted.
But this guy was definitely a white guy in skinny jeans.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. He really thought he was something else. So I just was like, man, it's gonna be an interesting week. So, yeah, we digress. But so if you look at branding as a way to identify, and then also you could get even more like carnal with it or primal. You're searing into the hide, into the skin, so to speak. This really you kind of can't unidentify with it at that point, right? Like a tattoo, it's permanent, right?
Yeah.
So
I will forever have a rose on my left hand.
right. And sure, they have now. Well, actually, even comparatively, like you can, within some reason, get a tattoo removed these days. You can still kind of see. It's like when you erase on a pad.
It's like scarred.
It's like scarred. But you can't remove a brand, like because like fraternities, like there's frats. I know guys that are in fraternities that have gotten the fraternity branded. I was like, oh, that's a little crazy. It's very cultish. So we kicked off this entire podcast with episode 1, building a cult-like culture.
Yeah.
So that'll probably naturally be a bit of a thread throughout all of our conversations and episodes. Because when you have this group of people that are so convicted in their belief, marketing is really like relatively simple. You put a playbook together, and then you have these really well branded people step into that playbook.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, we didn't have like a super strong marketing strategy prior to your arrival at MyCore. But what we did do or have was a really strongly branded group of people,
had
right?
A brand. Yeah, for sure.
Had a brand, had an internal brand.
Everyone at MyCore gets branded.
Right. Like, yeah. I was like, no, we give them great tools and Google Workspace. But even like we talked about in another episode where, I've been so psycho about brand and about the brand that I'm like, I don't trust people with their email signature. They're going to come up with all these other things. So we actually like set it up for them and then give them access to it. And there's all these little touch points in their onboarding that are like brand. And it's not just your typical like swag bag. It's like these meaningful ways to get into their thinking and into their psyche and into their, you know, just like heart for that matter, get into their feels, so that as they come along the path, they can start to express these beliefs and these convictions. And you combine that with actual marketing, a structure, a strategy, a playbook. That's like the perfect combination. So you take Daryl, you know, we use him as a great example because he's doing the deal. And Daryl's one of our advisors. He's part of our players community. So he's sort of self-selected him, well, also his results. And that guy's like branded, right? Like his thinking around MyCore is just solid. Like he believes in it. It's through and through.
Yeah. You can hear it in the way he talks about MyCore, but also the way he talks to clients and how he imprints himself into it. Like he's MyCore through and through for sure.
Right. So he's a bit of a poster child. Love the guy. And then you add marketing. You add what we're doing with Apollo, the focus that you've brought to the ICP, just like all these marketing strategies, structures, tech stack. I don't know that any of that matters if you don't have brand, you know, if you don't have conviction, if you don't have belief.
I think that is the key, right? And it all starts with you at the helm, right? I think that it all starts with the founder. It all starts with the CEO and this is where I think a lot of organizations kind of screw up, is they outsource the brand. And you can't outsource belief. You can't outsource conviction. You can't outsource Daryl, right? Daryl had to be imprinted by the brand that you have created, the conviction you have in the product and the offer. And I think that's one of the biggest things where I see organizations messing up, is because like we have to think about like we've talked about this before. There's nothing new under the sun. Like, I don't care if you are an advisory firm, a consultant, or the best new sexy AI tech stack in the history of the world, right? Guess what? Even if you are a brand new AI company, I was talking to my buddy Mike the other day. He runs an AI sales coaching tool called Sell Me This Pen. And it is baller, dude. Like, it's dope. But he was saying, he's like, dude, I'm getting copied everywhere. He's like, guys are just like, he's got that, you know, where you can see like the website visitors, and it's chief product officers of all of his competitors are going to his website. And it's like in the era that we live in, right? You can be copied one day to the next from your message, even from your positioning. You can be copied. And I think a lot of companies come into the world and they say, oh, we're a sales enablement tool. Or sales engagement, or whatever they're called these days. What is outreach and Apollo and what is Sales Loft? What are they saying? Well, let's just go say that. But let's say that we're better, faster, swifter, stronger. And the problem is that the reason outreach and Sales Loft and Gong, the reason that they were able to say this message and it resonate initially is because they were kind of first to market. And if they weren't first to market, they were like the first to shout it from the mountaintops. And what I see now is like we have all of these like later, you know, adopters that are coming into the market, and they're trying to say that thing. They don't actually have their own voice. No. And so there is no belief or conviction behind what's actually happening. Like the amount of sales reps that reach out to me on a weekly basis for like tips, hacks, scripts, like all of these things. The first thing I always ask them is like, before you read my script, before I give you this tip, do you believe that your product is the best product for the people that you're selling it to? And I would say 1% of people say yes.
Oh, really?
And so like Daryl, for instance, believes that market share is the very best marketing service for small business owners. Like he has zero zero hesitation that when he makes a phone call and the owner of a $3 million roofing company picks up the phone, he has zero hesitation that if he were to go sell that guy wouldn't make it to at least $5 million.
Yeah, see, I would call that brand, but it's belief, it's conviction, it's in a sense we are saying the same thing.
Yeah.
The thing about brand, in my opinion, is it's the constant. Like marketing will change.
Yeah.
Right? Like the strategy will change, the approach will change, the tools will change,
the algorithm will
change, even the messaging will change. Like that's just naturally variable. Brand, if you build it properly, it really doesn't change. And I would say to flesh it out even further, and as you said, nothing's new under the sun, but there's some modern tools on how you can take this timeless phenomenon or this timeless like staple approach and have it live in the new world of work. So the way we're building, and I think this is a nug alert for our listeners that are building companies and teams and
can we
and
add
brands.
like a siren?
Yeah, we need to get like
just like some sound
with
effects.
That new mixer I'm gonna get. You actually can like hit buttons. Yeah, so we'll be like DJ. We'll have to do that.
Yeah.
Like
Ding 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 ding.
Yeah. We'll figure that out. Right now, I still got the Facebook market. It's going strong. It's going strong.
It's doing what it has to do, except for episode 3.
Skip episode 3, unless you just want to hear me talk. Because the worst part too that I really was bummed about, man, is that your laugh, it didn't pick up your laugh.
Didn't pick up the laugh.
That's like half the reason to listen to the chairman is that
I'd probably say it's like 80%.
I would say it's 90%.
My laugh just redlined that. See?
See it. Okay, so nug alert. I actually was showing this to Jamie, so that's probably why it's fresh on my mind. When I was hanging with you guys and you were like, I'm going to go sell this company. I was like, nice. Like, you're going to sell them on, you're like, no, I'm going to sell the company. Like, they're buying it from me. I was like, that's some cool shit. I was like, I'm going to tell Jamie about this little model I have. So I drew in the center, the word community, right? Just center of the page, the notebook. I think it was Connor's notebook because there were like little drawings when I was at your house.
Just like warrior drawings.
Literally. And well, I'll just do it right here. So I drew just the center of the paper, the word community. And I believe that this is like the core of building a brand is you have to be building a community. And if you look at all great companies, or if you think back to like some of the best times you ever had in your career, or just like working, building something, it's probably because of the people, right? It's because of the community that you were in. It was the events that you attended. It was community. You're not going to see this, but
it says community.
It says. And then you use the word helm. I like to think of this even more like a helm than a hub and spoke, because a hub and spoke is kind of more like a tire, and a tire or a wheel, it just kind of rolls down the road. A helm, like on an old ship, you actually steer.
Wooden ship.
Old. It's French for a whale. Anyway, so if you think like you're building a helm, in the core or in the hub is community, which is, in my opinion, synonymous with brand.
Yeah.
So like there's the my core community. And then within that community, there's going to be more communities. There's going to be more brands. And this is where you can build and how you can build an ecosystem. And it's never been easier to build an ecosystem. Like back in the day, you would have to create like a campus with physical space where you had to have like the design team over there and the sales team over there. Now you can do this like we do on School for $99 a month. Swipe up, link in bio. We'll put our affiliate link in there. Excuse me. Reach out if you have questions about that. I'd be happy to answer. So you have this community, you have this brand, and like get clever. Call it something, right? So we have the Players. Why? Because I went golfing once, And actually, I wanted to call it the Masters, and then you took Jen and I, and we joined you and Jamie, and we went to TPC. I was like, we got to call it the Players. Yeah. Who even likes Georgia?
Yeah.
Like, so we called it the Players, and that's a brand, right? Like there's things that you can build around this brand,
and
around this community,
right? Like those, everyone looks at that as like those are the top salespeople in the organization.
Right.
They get different branded swag.
Right.
They get like anyone that is an advisor wants to be a player.
Right.
Right.
And then what you do is you just level everything up. So like around the community hub, I'm putting coaching, courses, merch.
Yep.
And this goes back to branding. Like you get identified because you're wearing that polo, you have that pin, you're wearing that hat. Like you've somehow earned the right to be branded with that merchandise, with that apparel. And then there's like special coaching that comes with that.
Yeah.
That like there's levels to this shit, right? So like I'm not going to talk to my almost 3-year-old son Levi the way I talk to Gavin, who will be 18 and is graduating. Like I'll have a conversation in the same kitchen in the same evening, what Gavin's doing this summer for work and what his plans are for college. I don't take that same conversation and say, hey, Levi, what summer job are you going to have?
Yeah.
And what are you thinking about majoring in? Right? I'm like...
He's like dinosaurs.
Right, exactly. And I don't go to Gavin and be like, do you need your diaper changed, right? Yeah. So you have to spoon feed people sometimes before you give them that full steak, that Wagyu, right?
Wagyu, baby.
So you can start to build in all these other aspects like events. This is really important because now you're putting on special events for that community, for that brand. And like the list goes on, and I won't keep going with it just so I'm not monopolizing the time. But this is how we've built our brand, built our community, and the sort of combination thereof. And what we're doing most recently with Cass.
Yeah.
That's pretty clever. I'll have to share that.
Yeah, you definitely
pretty stoked
need to just...
But anyway, if you want to respond to any of that, and I can come back to it.
No, yeah. I think
the
key is the community piece, because I think that the biggest thing that kind of like came out to me was like, yeah, the best times you've had in your life were with other people, right? And I think and that just all comes back to culture in the business world. But, I immediately was thinking about college, right? Like the best brands that you should follow are universities, right? And it's like, in a college, you have the university, which is the University of Maryland, but then you have the College of Business, the College of Arts and Sciences, right? And these are sub-communities, but everyone still goes to, is it still called Bird Stadium? No, I don't think it is. Whatever the stadium's called now, they all go from all these different worlds to watch the football team lose to Ohio State every year.
They don't, right. And they don't just go when they're students. They go when they're alumni. And they go when their kids are playing. It's not abnormal to see a 70-year-old dude, a 60-year-old woman at a college football game.
Now, it is abnormal if you're 50 to paint your face and yell at 22-year-olds. That's weird, dude.
That's weird. Like maybe skip the tailgating. Just go in with a classy polo. But by the way, it's interesting that you're using that analogy because that's literally how we've branded my course, right? That's why we do our events at the Graduate Hotel. That's why we look at it like this continued higher education. It's why our shield was derived from where I went to college. It's why my studio and our space here is set up this way. Is it's like it taps into this part of your life that was special, where you had these ride or die relationships where your whole future was set before you, where you didn't really know who you wanted to be or what you wanted to do when you grew up, but you were having the time of your life. For most people, those years, whether they went to college or went right into the workforce, were some pretty special years.
Yeah.
And that's part of our brand. Is like we literally have the academy and we have these like academic languages and brandings and nomenclatures that make up the wonderful world of MyCore.
Yeah.
And obviously, like we're gonna constantly talk about MyCore, right? As a proof positive.
Yeah, you're doing it every single day, right?
I would hope our listeners appreciate that. Otherwise we're just regurgitating shit we've heard versus like real time, a real cast of characters, the things we're learning, things that are not perfect. Like
I think like the biggest thing there is that one thing that you can say is MyCore is actually a brand. And I actually really like, even though PETA would cancel us, I really like I've never thought of branding a cow because I've never done it. Right. I've never gotten my hands dirty.
You're from Southern Maryland.
Yeah. I did. My very first job was actually cleaning horse shit out of horse stalls.
Nice.
But I'm deathly afraid of horses. They're too smart.
They'll kick you too.
They're a smart beast. But I really like that thought process of it being just like permanently on you. And it's like when you look at the brands that are out there, right? Apple. I've got an Apple Watch. I've got an iPhone. I've got a MacBook in my backpack. I've got whatever the desktop version is at my home. I've got an iPad. Like that is a brand that if anyone was like, dude, the new Google phone is dope, I'd be like, ew, that's dumb. That's like, why would you do that? And like all the engineers listening to this, because there's probably thousands, they're just like, oh, well, the operating system is so much better. It's like, I don't care about the operating system, right? The UX and the UI is like so much better on these phones. It's like, no, I've been imprinted by that brand. And I think what most organizations get wrong is they're not imprinting themselves on their market. And because I think with most companies, I think this is what you've done really, really well, dude, is most companies just are safe. Mm-hmm. They stay in that box. They say, oh, this company says we're the fastest. Let's say we're the swiftest, right? They synonymize themselves with the big players. They synonymize themselves with the people that are already in the market. When in reality, it's like, if I'm looking between this person who just got started and this company who has been here for 10 years, well, I'm obviously going with the company that's been here 10 years, has more case studies, has a bigger team, feel like they can, do more for me as an organization than these three guys that are doing it over here. But the reason these three guys in this that are doing the exact same thing as this big company can actually go and succeed is if they build an unforgettable brand. And the marketing part is taking that brand to market and saying outlandish things, unforgettable things, I think.
Yeah. And there's an actual roadmap to this. Yeah. So I think a lot of times when people are observing or studying or experiencing maybe an edgy brand or a bold brand, they think it's just because the person that established it is a little off their rocker or they don't care what people think. And maybe, but there's an actual path and formula and blueprint, and it's not a secret. So if you're not familiar with the law of diffusion of innovation, look it up. You could Google it, or you could just chat GPT it. I'm going to verbally share it because it's been the way in which I've approached branding and thus marketing. And I read the book, The Tipping Point, my freshman year of college. So I was 17, 18 years old, 18 probably. I think I read it maybe in the spring semester. I had turned 18. And I'll never forget who handed it to me. Raleigh Peterkin, who was like the number one recruit of the 6 of us that were recruited to wrestle at Penn. And he knew that I had a clothing company because I made sure of it, and we were doing our thing. And I've shared a little bit about that. And he said, you should read this book. And it was Malcolm Gladwell's The Tipping Point. This is I think maybe we just got Facebook. We had just gotten Facebook because we were college students.
Yeah,
we were allowed
back
to
then have the EDU. Yeah,
right. So, we were the last year that before they changed that in 2007.
Because I got mine my freshman year of high school.
High
We were
school.
like the first high school crew that could have it.
And we were like, what?
Yeah.
Like erroneous on all
These
accounts.
dweebs.
Yeah, like no way. We had to earn our right. So this was pre-social media. Just meaning that it was timeless. It wasn't just when.
Are you saying MySpace wasn't the greatest social media?
I know, true, true. I got a whole nother story about MySpace, but another day. So I read the book, and among a number of things, I was inspired. So much so that I started rethinking all of our branding and started to rethink like the way I thought permanently about branding and marketing, and have applied that to everything I've done since. And it's all based on this law, the law of diffusion of innovation, which essentially lays out a bell curve that says, hey, if you are an innovator, you're somebody that is like starting the thing or are part of the very early small group of people that are starting the thing. You are 2.5% of people.
Yeah.
You're rare. You've got the guts to do it. You've got the vision to do it. You're willing to take the risk and look stupid and have egg on your face and, eat crow and all the things that an innovator would require. The next stage of people will be your early adopters. Many of us have heard that. That's about 13.5% of people or consumers. And then there's the chasm, which you'll have to cross. I'll come back to in a second. And then you have your early majority, which is 34%, your late majority, which is 34%. So combine that 68%. And then you have your laggards, which is 16%. They're never going to buy it. Under some rare circumstance, they might get it as a gift, but they don't give a shit, right? And the thing about the law of diffusion of innovation is this is not a blanket law across all industries or ideas or products. It is different because different strokes for different folks. So you could be an innovator or an early adopter of music, but a laggard in technology.
Yeah.
You might be an early adopter of fashion, but be a laggard in politics, right? So you have to kind of know your audience and say, all right, like what type of person am I? And I don't even say a targeting, because it's like you're not a sniper.
Yeah.
You're not trying to kill this person. You're actually trying to be in community with this person. So it's not war. It's quite the opposite. It's like, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. And it's not a bait and switch, and you're not a spy. You don't have to pretend like you're one of them. Like you can be who you are.
Yeah.
And people will know if you.
That's a good note, by the way.
Right?
Like, dude, I want you to finish this, but I don't want to overlook that. It's like I see too many people trying to go to market as if they've done like the job of that person. And sure, you need to know, like you need to understand that. But like, yeah, be yourself. Like be okay.
Be yourself. Like I'll just real time it, man, because I want to try to keep these episodes as authentic and real time as possible. So I was talking to Susan Marie before you arrived here to do this episode, and she's probably either on the call right now or very soon going to be on the call with this account. She connected with him on LinkedIn, and she was just feeling a little bit like out of her depth around Cass, because it's newer to us and particularly to her. And she was kind of just expressing like a little bit of like, well, I don't really know entirely what I'm talking about yet. And I said, yeah, totally. I said, so the best thing you could do is tell him that you know very little about it and ask him what he knows. And she I could just like hear, even though I'm just on the phone, kind of like what? And I'm like, yeah, like, because you just said you don't know that much about it, right? So the best thing you could do is tell the truth and say, hey, and I just wanted to load her lips a little bit. And I said, I would say, so our founder and CEO was just in Scottsdale eating all the Wagyu you could possibly want. No pork, obviously. He's
probably a pork-free city.
Yeah, like just. And he was with the creme de la creme of the accounting industry. And we had been flirting with this before, but he came out of that event realizing that, you know what, we're going to go full send on building a community and building a brand all around CAS, Client Advisory Services, sometimes known as Client Accounting Services. And like, we're going to climb that learning curve. Like, we're going to go on that trek. And he even came up with a clever brand, because he'd be like that, called Casual Friday. CAS in all caps, UAL. I know. It's so good.
Don't forget casual conversations every Friday.
Dude, casual
That's a good one,
conversations
dude.
with Curtis and Susan Marie. Fridays, 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, okay. The point there is that we are an innovator and we are looking for our early adopters. I then went on to say, so what you could say to him is, right now we're putting together our founding 50 members of this community, and we're really looking for people that would be able to like teach us the way, like show us the path to really resonate with the accounting community, to be able to meet their needs in the most significant way, ultimately their clients. And was curious, like, your scope of understanding of CAS, and have you brought that to life in your practice? Is that something that you have been intrigued by, built infrastructure for? And I could just feel her like relieved, going like, wow, I really don't have to be someone I'm not.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you don't have to pretend like you're a CAS expert all of a sudden, because you're not. You know what I mean? Like, and I've never pretended to be anything that I'm not. I just am what I am. Like, I am who I am in that moment. And then I also know the human condition, which is that smart people like to sound smart. They want to be asked questions. They want to pontificate. They want to share their information. Give them that gift. They're winning because they get to pour out all their brilliance, and you're winning because you're taking notes.
Well, you've brought up founder-led sales previously. Ask my opinion on it, and I say it is the most crucial thing a founder can do is go to market and sell the product. And the first step that I always recommend an early stage founder is to go do market research themselves, not on ChatGPT, not on Google, but literally message and call and drop in to the people that you think that you are selling to and say, hey, I've got this idea. It's not fully fleshed out, but here is the pain. Here is the solution. Give me your thoughts. And it's interesting because I've done this at multiple companies I've been with and been tasked with this role. And it's funny because a lot of times those conversations turn into, hey, dude, when you're ready, I'm going to buy the shit out of this. But also what happens is, hey, dude, you're missing this key piece. And the problem is that I think a lot of founders and a lot of sales reps, they think they have to know everything walking into that meeting. And it's like, I've had more success in my career going, what's that? Than sitting back and being like, that acronym totally makes sense to me, right? And just being out of the loop on what they're talking about. Right? I think you made the conversation about the EA or something like that.
Dude, that was funny.
But it is. It's like, I think that is super crucial about being...
this is what it reminded me of. I kept trying to think how I felt in that moment, which I've become, I'm like tight with those people now, but I think it was because of just the authenticity. And, a little bit of a...
Which is also a big piece of your brand. It needs to be authentic to you, and you, it's like, dude, like...
It's kind of like, it is lying, like basic morals. And anyone that's ever lied and like were taught by their parents properly, like, hey, don't lie, because then you're going to have to make up a bunch of other lies and you're going to forget what you lied about and you told the truth about. And it's really nerve-wracking. So anyone that's ever been, untrustworthy or did a bad thing, and I've been there, I've done that, where I'm like, shit, I'm like deep into this lie now. Like, I don't know how to get out of it. And I really like, I know that's like, don't do bad things, don't be a bad boy 101. But like, people do that in business in these ways that they don't even realize. They're going like, well, what did I tell them I did know or didn't know? So I only reveal or report or speak to the things that I know that I know. Now, this is really important because you're still going to be building clout. You're still going to be building credibility. You're still going to be building, credence. So I promise you, in any and all conversations ever that are longer than a minute, there's going to be opportunities for you to showcase your expertise, showcase your ability to think through a matter. And that's why building philosophies and solid, good philosophies is the best use of one's time, because every what, every how is anchored by a who and a why. And the reason I spend my time, and by the way, this is like cheat code on scale. Like if you ever want to lead a large organization, you have to be philosophically based, because the amount of different details that will come to your desk, you won't know. You better have a philosophy for it that you go, I don't know what you're talking about because I'm not in that department. I don't know those people. For example, you and I can have a very poignant conversation about today's training with the players. I don't know what you guys are talking about. I do not know how to log into Apollo. I do not know the talk tracks. I know very little, but I could have a very high level, deep leader to leader conversation about it. I think we already did earlier. Because I'm rooted in philosophy.
Yeah. And you also know that people, because you didn't outsource belief, you didn't outsource conviction, because every single day you walk in with the same philosophy, conviction, belief, and you instill that in the people, that you can know that no matter who I'm talking to, what I'm talking about, where I'm talking, that same belief, conviction, and I guess just like sense of self, right, inside of this organization is going to be put into the things that I do.
Dude, yes. And the greatest gift you could give yourself and the greatest gift you could give your organization is that belief, is that brand. It will give you so much peace of mind, because you know the expression will be different, but put differently, the lyrics will be different, but the music, the melody will be the same. So I know that the orchestra that is my core is consistent. And that's why I have trust in my leaders. I have trust in the levels of leadership, because the brand bleeds through the organization. And that didn't just happen. In fact, I'm going to get back to how it happened, because there's an actual how-to here. Like this is like the blueprint. It's not as artistic as people think. It's quite scientific. So what happens is, you're an innovator. By the way, if you're listening to this, you're an innovator. You are, because you're that early stage in our podcast called The Chairman, that you're looking for nuggets to be like us. You're not listening because you're bored. You're not listening because this is mega popular. You're not listening because it's like the coolest thing since sliced bread. You're listening because somebody relatively close to you, pretty close to you, told you about it. And you have enough respect for that person, enough love for that person, at least enough curiosity that you were like, I'm going to invest the time to listen to those two bros, bro. So the temptation, the part that is counterintuitive, that you must resist this temptation. You're going to be tempted to build your messaging, your language, your music, your identity, like all the things, your brand and your marketing, for the majority, early and late, because it's 68% of the market. Obviously, that's who you want. Who doesn't want all those people buying, right? But you never will get to those people. There's only one way to get to those people, and it's by way of the early adopters. They have all the influence, and they are the ones that cross the chasm. They are the ones that take you through the Red Sea, part the sea, and escape from the Israelites, right? Or the Philistines. The Israelites escaped from the Philistines, I think. So brush up on my Old Testament. Somebody fact check me, right? So you are Moses parting the Red Sea with your early adopters when building a brand. You don't build your messaging for the 68%, because the 68% don't appreciate edgy language like that. They don't want to be the 7th person to try it. They want to be the 700th person to try it. These people are normal people. They're the averages. They're the safe people. They're the ones that say, let me see the 700 reviews that you have, not the 2 that you have.
Yeah.
So you have to know who you're talking to, and your goal is not to go out and get 100 clients or 1,000 clients. It's to find your early adopters, your raving fans, your loyalists, your zealots, the people that are going to let you screw it up for a while and stay loyal while you make it right.
Yeah.
So that eventually together, they're the ones saying, you got to talk to my core. You got to talk to ABC. You got to talk to XYZ. And that's where I think people screw it up. And nowadays, if you're not careful, you might get information spit out to you from chat in seconds that say, yeah, this is how you want to sound because this is what the big brands do. And it's like, but we're not a big brand.
Yeah.
We're going to get the cool kids that pride themselves on being in the know. They like the indie band before it goes mainstream. Yeah. So then when we say that
That's so good,
street and not mainstream and we're killing mainstream, it's actually a formula for growth more than it is just like a chant. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, and Jamie makes fun of me all the time because once a song gets popular, I immediately stop listening to it. Right? Like it is very much like that is, I am whatever the percentage was at the beginning.
You're an innovator. For sure.
It's like,
and at worst, you're an early adopter.
Yeah.
Because it's the profile there is like, you know, you have to be like an FBI profiler. You have to think like, who is this person? Well, this person wants to feel unique. They hate the idea of being part of the pack. Average, the worst thing you could ever say is, hey, Ned, you know, I was looking at the averages, you know, and as an average person, it's like, what did you say? I'm far from average. Look at the way I dress, talk, earn money. Like everything I do is off the chart. So if you're building something that you want to be off the chart, you have to go talk to the people that are off the chart. The reason I went to Scottsdale is because these are the early adopters. These are the outliers. This is the creme de la creme.
Yeah.
The cream of the crop that rises to the top. Like I want those people to be our largest endorsement because they're the ones that are going to tell probably, I don't know, maybe the guy that she's talking to today. But here's the thing. What I did, because I know that she's not connected to the people that I'm connected to, I said, what time's your meeting? And you met him on LinkedIn. I immediately went and added him on LinkedIn because I know he's going to go, oh, that's the founder and CEO of my core. And he's going to see all his mutual friends. Yeah. And he's going to go, oh shit, his buds are all these people that I know are the cream of the crop. And I'm softening the conversation for her so that when she makes that reference, he can go, yeah, he actually added me. Yeah, I told him about you. Yeah. So ego dies in this section.
Interesting.
It's so important, right? And this is like the balance, man, because you got to keep your dignity. You got to like walk tall, but you got to be super humble all at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to decide the things you do know. So like the way I conducted myself in Scottsdale last week is really important because I knew that I didn't even know what an EA was. I still kind of don't.
What is it, by the way?
I don't know.
I had one.
It's like, it's not an executive assistant.
Okay, cool.
Because I met this like super sharp dude and I was like, yeah, Michael, I was like, what is he an accountant? And they were like, no, he's an EA. And everyone just kept talking, you know, kept going. I was like, he's an executive assistant. And I was like, no, really, like what's an EA? And they're like, you know, and then I still don't know. It's like something agent. Okay. It's like something agent. He can file taxes.
Oh, interesting. So
he's like not a CPA, but he can file taxes.
Okay. Well, cool.
Whatever that is.
Dude, that's
awesome. Somebody Google it.
Hey, dude, congratulations. Congratulations, you.
Yeah.
Like,
and then they were like, are you even an adult human? Is what they asked me next. And somebody
no.
Said, and I was like, I said, I'm not an accountant. I said, in fact, I'm here because I want to learn from you guys. Because we're starting to partner with accountants. And I literally did the thing that I just said, 3 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And then I got all the information I needed.
And forgot all of it.
Because I got people for them. But just point.
Just tell Ned and Ned will figure it out.
Like, Ned, you guys talk, right? But the point here is that it's so counterintuitive. It is the complete opposite. Literal 180 of what you'd think to do because 100%. You're looking at this massive market. You're looking at this TAM. Anytime somebody talks about TAM, you know, I'm like, if you want to introduce me to Tammy because Tammy has a lot of friends. First time
she's an early adopter,
right? I was like, who's Tam? I know a Pam. Excuse me, I think I can help with the Tam Pam dilemma. Like there's a silent M like calm. Comb.
Is it two M's?
Anyway, so yeah, that's the key is having the discipline to not address the addressable market, to not target the addressable market, and to build your community on early adopters that are as edgy and bold and forward thinking and radical as you are.
Yeah. And this is why I said this earlier, but it's like, I actually don't like when people create like the office manager Ollie and like those fake personas, because most of the time that is done in a closed context of the majority, right? The majority of people we're going to sell to is VP Victor, and VP Victor cares about this, and he is, he has to report these things, and if this thing goes wrong, he's screwed. Well, cool, yeah, that's awesome, but it's more important to actually go talk to the real guy, Victor, and get a sense of what are like, does he really care if like this thing doesn't happen in his organization? Is he really going to lose his job if they drop revenue 2% in a quarter? Like, you have to start to have those conversations and have those like, I don't know what an EA is. Yeah. Can you explain it to me? And I mean, I remember early on in my career, I'm selling mobile apps to gyms. I never run a gym.
Right.
I don't know all of that. Like, I'm sitting there having conversations with these gym owners that have, multi-location franchises, all of these things. And I'm going, okay, how is my app going to help you? Right. Like, but unless I had those conversations, I would have gone with these canned responses that had been given to me from our playbook, because that's what happens. That's what businesses give people. And when you're early, the most important thing you can do, I think number one is what we talked about earlier, is like create that internal brand, that internal community, and create these people that are branded. But now it's taking those individuals and going to market. And it's an interesting, I've never heard it this way, of just going to that very, very small minority of people.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I've always thought of marketing that way. I've always thought like, oh, you got to be edgy. You got to stand out. You've got to do these things. And it's like,
yeah, you do this naturally.
Yeah. It's like, because it is like, I want that guy over there with the blue hair and the, all this. And it's like, because people are listening.
I don't know about that.
No, I don't. Yeah. I was thinking of something edgy. Like, I want the guy that's like wearing 70s clothes in 2025 to wear my clothes, because people are looking at him and going, and I want that guy that is listening to weird music to listen to my music, because he's going to go tell his friends who tell their friends who tell their friends.
And then the key here too, right, is you can't just be like using these people, right? It has to be a genuine relationship.
Yeah.
And then the feedback loop, this all goes back to the clothing company I started. So I wanted to crack the code on this because I was really fascinated by how quickly trends would come and go. And this was again in 2006, 2007. So this wasn't even with the virality of social media. And I watched clothing brands in particular come on the scene. And this was mainly in like the surf skate world, where at the time that's where I lived. And they would hit the market hard. They would tip. They would become mega popular. And then people would be hating on them within like a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's got to be a way to crack the code on that. Like, how do you become popular, but not have it become your demise?
Well, because in that industry too, it was like once you became big, you were a sellout.
Right. You become a sellout. You've gone mainstream. So it's like they're like hypersensitive to the cool factor, right? Because it's clothing, it's music, it's not technology or business solutions. But the laws are the same. The principles are the same. I've watched it happen with Gusto. So Gusto was mega popular. Like, I'm about to talk crap on a company that we've been a top partner of, that I fell in love with, like was enamored by them, practically built my entire business model around them. And the general consensus in Scottsdale was, hey, do any humans work there anymore? And I thought, man, what a colossal mistake. Now they've hit 400,000 clients, 400,000 customers.
Their CEO's wiping his tears as you talk.
Right. I'm like, hey,
with $100 bills.
Exactly. Good on you. But I do believe that there's a way to sustain this beyond, because every level has its devil. And I don't think any true real deal founder is obsessed with the money or the metrics. I think that they want to build something significant and sustainable. And I think that it would pain them as much, the dollar bill tear wiping is probably a little easier than at like the floundering failures. Right. Yeah. That just hurts, but you know what I mean? Like there's no, it's not like Tim Cook is like, guys, who cares? We got $1 trillion market cap. Like he doesn't go into his board meetings like that, like, are you guys rich? Cause I'm rich, like all companies want to think differently and grow and, innovate, or at least they pretend to, but so because nothing fails like success, this is a dangerous game because you can do it wrong. You can do it like very wrong. And I have a lens for this, so I can see when it's wrong, even when it's at 400,000, even when it's at this many millions. And you have to decide like what game you're playing. If you're just playing the money game, then fine. Yeah, just keep doing that. If you're playing the game of significance, impact versus just success and financial gain, then well,
I think also just to like point, if you're just playing the money game and you're not building a brand and you're not going to market with something that is unforgettable, the thing is your churn from that point when someone does come with a brand that brands people and embeds, like, I think that's where it's like, you can do it for only so long before people go, oh, because here's the thing. Everyone wants to be an early adopter.
Right.
And like, maybe like people have different risk tolerances, but we are selling to human beings, right?
Totally.
And so it's like, that's the thing that I look at when you talk about Augusto and like, hey, they have 400,000 clients and customers and they have this accounting community. And it's like, but then you're with the early adopters and the innovators of the accounting community and they're going, who now?
Right. So here's the cracking of the code. So I'm studying this. I'm barely able to pay attention in class. I'm like literally drilling, wrestling, thinking about this. Like I have vivid memories of being on the mat, sweating, cutting weight, and thinking about things like this, just business, but particularly this thesis. And I thought, wait, cognitive dissonance. That's the antidote.
Interesting.
Most people, the great majority of people, will never be able to hold two opposing thoughts in their mind and exist. They have to hold on to one and kick out everything. Politics are a prime example of this. Like, I am a registered Republican. I voted as such. Half our listeners just left. And or we doubled. I don't know.
I voted Republican. I voted Democrat. Damn, I couldn't even say it.
You lying sack of shit. Right, that's the other thing. Be authentic. But I have like the ability. This is Nathan Bourne's definition of sophistication, by the way. Like, if somebody were to ask you, what is a sophisticated person, or who is a sophisticated person? It's somebody that can...
Someone that wears a monocle.
Right, of course. Somebody that can hold two opposing thoughts and live with both of them and go, you know what? This is what I believe. Not just live with one, by the way. Choose one and live with the other. So like, as a Christian, I understand there's other religions. I get that they're solid, that they make sense, that works for a lot of people. I still choose this one.
Yeah.
Right? So it's... Whereas you have that person that's like, this is the truth and you deserve to die, or like, you're dumb. And it's like, no, you're dumb because you haven't even done the research on the opposing thought to actually deepen your faith or your conviction or your brand, for that matter. So I'm saying all this to say, because most people can't do that and won't do that, what you do is you invite, it's literally what I said earlier. You invite the early adopters, the cool kids, into the creative process. If they're co-creating with you, by the time it comes out of the oven, and it can be half-baked, and people are busy, so you got to do the work, but they need to have a touch on at least the second half, because when it comes out, they'll go, I was part of why Casual Friday exists. Nathan sent me a kit of merchandise with a handwritten note thanking me for my input, all stuff I'm going to be doing, right? And that's me. I did that part. Oh, that's me, right? That's the thing where you got to have a group of people. It's a relatively small group of people. And then you keep doing that forever. So you create advisory councils and you create masterminds and you create board seats so that people go, hey, you're getting off track here a little bit. Good freaking catch, man. Add that in. Now, because they're perpetually creating, they're never going to knock you because they would have to have these two opposing thoughts, which is they're smart and the thing they created is dumb.
Yeah.
But they're not dumb, so they're going to constantly endorse you. So the mistake Augusto and so many other companies have made or are making is they stop inviting the most influential people into the process. And now when those people turn on you, you are royally screwed.
Yeah.
There is no coming back from that because it's like, oh no, I'm sorry about that. And it's like, you got too big for your britches. So that's the cheat code, man. That's how we do it. That's how I've built the whole company. It's how we'll continue to build it. It's why my core will grow and grow and grow and grow and grow because I have so ingrained in my thinking that we're going to always have a feedback loop and create a co-creation process with the most influential early adopters, and they'll constantly part the Red Sea. And it's all transparent. It's not a bait and switch.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's a super novel way of thinking about it. I've never seen this written on X or LinkedIn or any of that because I don't think that many people, I mean, I know very, very few people. I can count on one finger how many people think like Nathan Bourne. And I think it is.
Thank you. Not sure what that was.
No, that is an edification of what you're doing because, when I think of brand, right, I think of like, oh man, there's like, and I think most people would think of this like, oh, cool colors, cool logo, cool slogan, cool people, right?
Great trademark.
Yeah, great. Yeah, exactly. And like, now let's bring that brand to market with the message and the positioning. And, I think there is so often, and I see this all the time with founders, like I love the build in public movement, which I don't necessarily think is as much a movement anymore as it is just kind of the norm. But like, I love it because, if you truly, like, I'll just give it this way. If anyone listening to this podcast wanted to start my core, right, again, and they wanted to copy profit share and market share, and they wanted to copy everything that you do, it would look nothing like what my core looks like today. And people are drawn to my core because of the brand that you've built. People stay with market share and profit share because of the overarching brand that you have built, and like the cognitive dissonance and being able to, like, that is the reason that people stay. And so as I'm listening to you talk, and as I'm listening to it as in like taking my podcast host hat off and putting on like a learner hat, it's like it truly does come down to, this is probably not the right word, but it's like crowdsourcing with the people that are the hipsters of the industry that you're going into.
Completely. And in his book, The Tipping Point, he talks about who these characters are, right? The mavens, the connectors, and Cheryl's a prime example, right? So Cheryl's somebody that you might go, oh, well, she's not a maven. She doesn't know what the product does. Doesn't matter. She's a super connector. Dude, Pierce, who has had an impact on my core, and my core has had an impact on him, that's Cheryl.
Yeah.
Paul Kreider,
yeah.
Cheryl, right? So when you find somebody that is hyper connected,
a lot of our like long-standing clients are Cheryl too.
So what you do, and by the way, and I love you, Cheryl, if you're listening, you're a hot mess. You caused challenges as well. I love you as you are. You're a pain in my ass, right? But it takes one to know one. It's fine. But it nets out positively because I have very clearly designated, not that you put people in boxes, but like I know who she is and I know her gifting, and I don't need her to be anyone else because I know who you need. I know the cast of characters. It's like if you're going to play the orchestra, you can't have all violinists. You can't have all people playing the cello or the piano or the percussion. You have to have an ensemble. And you got to pay attention to the fact that you aren't like God. So when people bring people across your path, they're going to be unfinished products because they're people, you know, and people are flawed units, myself included. So building the ensemble is this very weird balance between knowing that you need a person, but you don't need that person. But when you get that person, you treat them like they're that person until they choose not to be that person. And then you find a person to fill that role. So it's this weird thing where you're like, we need a president. Shit, I'd love it to be Ned. If it's not Ned, we still need a president because we just learned in the last 90 days what happens when Nathan Bourne is freed up to be Nathan Bourne and this other strong leader, you, gets to be who you are. That's the magic, right? And then you build the relationship and you just keep showing up in it.
And early on, it might be people outside of your organization.
Right.
And I think from what I'm hearing from you, not even just early on, forever, it should also be people outside of your organization.
It must be.
It must be.
So here's the other like really intricate part is you have to somehow build this barrier of entry. And what I'm kind of talking about is exclusivity while retaining inclusivity, right? So it's like, and I'm not talking DEI stuff. I'm talking about like, how do you create this standard, this brand, this bar that you have to be on a certain level to even get it? And yet somehow like come one, come all. It's really quite delicate. I mean, it's a needle that we thread. And there's tactical ways to do it. Community is still the answer to do it, right? I mean, there should always be some barrier of entry, right? Like something that they have to do, a little hurdle, a little step up, a little skin off their back. There's got to be something.
Could be a dollar amount, could be a form they've got to fill.
Right, like there's got to be something, totally, right? But find ways to make your organization more inclusive to people outside of the organization, the client base, the employee base, the contractors. So that's why we do things. And I'm telling you, it's as much about doing it as it is about whether it's growing, it's profitable, it's money making. And, you know, this is also a nice little tension because you do want to be focused but you don't want to be so focused that you're like, look at this little bunny that we have and we're just going to its neck, right? It's like a master chef goes from the crock pot to the stovetop to the oven to the microwave. And you'd be like, oh, a master chef would never microwave. Not true. The butter might need to be melted and it needs to be melted in the next 30 seconds. And maybe the crock pot has been going all day and maybe the sauce has been, so it's like you're finding these kind of like ways to master cook all the things and recognizing that they're on different timelines, that they feed in different ways and they serve different purposes.
Well, what I think you're saying is like the focus is not necessarily in the process. The focus is in the vision, right? Because what I'm hearing you saying is like that master chef would probably never microwave a steak. Right. Like, but because the vision is the steak and the potatoes and the heirloom, I think it's heirloom potatoes. Yeah. I'm not a chef.
They're like potatoes that are passed on from you know what an heirloom?
It's an old potato. What even is this is but it's like you're actually even saying it's not in the way that you get there, or in the way that it's presented backstage. It's how the presentation comes out the door and cleaning the plate and putting the extra garnish on. It's like all of that can be done with multiple different tools and people and things, but it's the brand that leaves the station and goes out into the world is the thing. And maybe you had to, at the very last second, you had to microwave this to make it just hot enough. But when it leaves, it still looks the exact same.
Ned, you're absolutely right. And there's also like an element of experience that has to be a thread and a through line in all of it. Because if you think about it, most chefs will never even see the people that eat their food.
Yeah.
They're in the kitchen.
Unless you go to a Waffle House. How dare you disrespect those chefs?
True. You're going to be sweating right on your face.
He's staring at you while he eats his scrambled eggs, baby.
But it's true. It's this weird thing. And, I kind of think of myself that way as a founder. Like there are things that I've baked up and cooked up and passed on and that have obviously changed. And I'm like, I'm not even in those meetings.
Yeah.
And, we're getting to a point now where I can't even consume the content. Like I'm like, okay, do I listen to the episode we did to get gooder? Or do I go into school to read what Daryl wrote? Do I listen to the replay? And I'm in this like new phase of like trust factor where I'm getting debriefed.
Yeah.
I'm getting like Spark Notes on. If you don't know what Spark Notes is,
you're not over 30.
You're not over 30.
You didn't cheat.
You're a giant. You're an actual.
I remember using Spark Notes and getting called out by my 5th grade teacher. Fuck you, Miss Burke.
Oh, that's so funny.
But dude, I remember I was like, Spark? What's Spark?
Or Reader's Digest, right?
Dude, she literally pulled up Spark Notes and it was literally
like
word for word.
For like,
and I was like, wow, they're really smart. Dude,
they stole from me.
I didn't ever break, dude. I was like, nah, dude, that's not what it says. The exact same thing. I'm just a smart person.
Like they know
I cheated.
Bearing the hatchet. Oh my god, Old Yeller.
Dude, but I think the thing that's interesting. Sorry. Love you, Miss Burke. But
R.I.P.
Probably.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think the thing that I'm just like hearing more of is that it all just comes back to, because you have built such like that thread through the entirety of everything that we're doing, that it's like Casual Fridays is going to look like my core, feel like my core, talk like my core. Market share looks, feels, talks. Profit share, same thing. Like Chairman podcast, my core podcast, the stuff that, the short form stuff that Kenya's building and the blogs and all of this, there is that thread that runs through because you had a conviction early on. You had this like, this is the message.
Well, Ned, I grew up in a really chaotic world, and I found ways to create stability, emotional and mental stability in a otherwise dysfunctional and chaotic upbringing. And it brought me peace. It brought me happiness. It brought me safety. And that has teetered on being OCD. People that work closely with me know how psychotic I am about like, so it's one word. I mean, dude, I said this to you at one point. Do you remember? Pretty early on, I was like, I hate doing this because I'm like a grown man talking to another grown man that I'm like courting for my core right now. And I'm like, hey, so it's capital M, lowercase y.
I remember that.
Capital C, capital O, capital. And you were like, never again. And I was like, cool. Like you were sort of showing your, I don't know if respect is the word, but at least your tolerance for like, you're psycho, no problem. I respect it. And I was just kind of like, but those were early moments where I was like, don't fuck with the brand. Like, because it matters. It matters the way the shield shows up. It matters the way that they can see my core in the freaking video if they're watching it. Like, I'm psychotic about that because we live in a crazy world. And when you come to Disney World and you have worked your ass off for 5 years to save, and you've been thinking about it, your spouse knows it's going to be the vacation of a lifetime. You're going to make memories with your young children that will last a lifetime. You want to be able to feel the continuity, feel the common thread, the through line from Animal Kingdom on day 1 to Magic Kingdom on day 2 to Epcot on day 3. And even though you've only been there for a week and you saved for 5 years to go into debt to do it, you can't have dysfunction and chaos. So when somebody becomes a client of ours, they come work at, with, and for my core, I need them to find peace in the chaos. And brand does that, oddly enough.
Interesting.
It creates this thing where they go, wait, I'm still at my core, even though I'm in this community, this environment, this moment. I'm with, at, and for my core at all times. So that's some of the origin story of where that thinking comes from.
It's a really, really interesting way of thinking about how to go to market, right? It's like, I feel like there are probably people that listen to this and are like, meh, I'm still going to chat GPT.
Yeah,
And
right.
it's like, because I want the 68% of people.
Right.
And I think it's a really,
That'll
really,
work for a while.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the takeaway is, hey, yeah, you're going to see some really quick growth. But if you're not consistently bringing the people that have influence and the outliers into your organization, and not as employees or contractors, but into the nuts and bolts of what you're looking to do and how you're looking to change the game in your business, in your community, I think you're missing out on a massive long tail of growth. And so I'll ask you this as we kind of round third here, is for like the individuals listening that might be starting a company, at a company, like maybe they're not the founder, like how do you do this in just a practical, tactical way in like the everyday world of
Great
business?
And just to plug away, this is really what the Lead with Who book will reveal. It's what it will give the blueprint for, both as like can't unsee it, but then also like tactical, practical application. Lead with Who, and what that could be put, if you had to like fill in the blanks there, it's like lead with you, lead with brand, lead with identity, like find ways and then go do your research. So like if you're an SDR at XYZ company, go find the origin story, go find the values, get in touch with the mission, like figure out the brand. And if, by the way, when you do that, you're like uninspired or turned off, go on LinkedIn and put open to work and immediately start looking for another job.
I think that's, dude, honestly,
do not work at that company.
If you're uninspired by your organization's vision, mission, and the values don't align with you, you should be looking for a job, but you will at least be looking for a job in the next 12 to 18 months for sure, because something's going to happen.
Well, that company's not even going to last. Yeah. So to be able to sustain and have the resilience in this market and what is probably imminent, which will be a lot of consolidation, there'll be some upheavals, like it's going to get shaky. I don't have any worry about it because it's just relative, right? But like get really aware right now of who you're working with, who you're working for. And then if there's not like a core to that and it's not solid, one of two things: start asking questions and see how you could be the person that champions for that and like teases that out and says, hey, there is a cool story here. Why aren't we telling it? Why aren't we talking about the founders? Why aren't we talking about their struggles? Why aren't we talking about their journey? And then I'm telling you, go start just sharing the story. So under the assumption that there is a good story there is something meaningful, something inspiring, there is like a seed that could grow, try leading all of your conversations with that. Like the next call you make, before you even say, this is what we do, or this is how the shoe fits, or this is how the solution works, ask them a question and say, hey, just before I tell you anything about what we do, would it be okay if I shared our values and mission in like 30 seconds? Yeah. Cool. Well, here's our values. We walk by faith, we lead with who, and we measure what matters. Our mission is to be the world's most people-centric company. The reason I'm calling you is, one, to make sure that those things kind of resonate with you, because we really like working with people who align with us. And then secondly, I'm curious, who's currently at the helm of all of your marketing operations? And I don't even know what you guys are saying these days, but I know you're saying good shit. And look, I understand that like I can't necessarily be teaching this nonstop, but I can at like this level. So like even right now, I hope our advisors obviously listen to this podcast. So these are this is the platform I have now to like ripple those beliefs through and echo those beliefs through the organization. It used to be more like I'm the one doing the training or I'm the one talking to the person. But I did that long enough that there are like champions of the faith, so to speak. There's like my core protectors, that I like keep them reminding them of like, guys, do not forget who we are and why we exist. That's the special sauce. And I know it sounds like esoteric or intangible, and it's especially tempting when you know that you got to go from this revenue to this revenue or from this place to this place. Both of these things can exist. You can target a market. You can be very specific about their needs. You can tell them how we meet them. You can still have supply and demand, but infuse it into those conversations and make that music keep playing even when you're sharing those lyrics.
Well, because like, even like as you're saying that, it's like, hey, maybe you're not saying that on a cold call. Maybe you are getting right to the pitch and you're saying, hey, here's what we do. Here's how we solve it. Hey, we're working with other organizations like yourself. We're hearing they're frustrated with X, concerned about Y, struggling with Z. Any of that resonate, right? Even the way that you present those struggles and those concerns and those frustrations can have an underlying like belief system behind it and conviction behind it. And I think like from a marketing perspective, it is very much like, hey, a lot of people are talking about what? I mean, there's 99% of your competitors are talking about what? If you want to stand out, talk about your who, right? And this could even, and in my opinion, I'd say you can even talk deeply about who you serve, right? The people that you serve, the solutions that, like how it helps them and serves them and how your product actually takes them from where they are to where they want to be, how you can cross the chasm with them and why you're the best fit for that because of certain missions, visions, values, and things of that nature. But I think like a big piece that I'm learning today is it's about threading that through every conversation. Everything that you bring to the table. It's like I read your LinkedIn posts and it's like, even then when you don't say lead with who, I see it in your posts. Even when you don't say people centric, I see it in your posts.
I'm people based on everything I do. So you can do that like in literally everything you do. There's also this element of like, as a wrestler, I always broke the sport down into 3 parts: set up, execute, finish. And I think a lot of times people want to rush that process. So it's okay to say like, hey, I'm calling. I was just hoping to connect with you to see if there's alignment. And then I'm going to give you a call back to share with you more about what we do when the time's right. And it's like, that way, when you're calling back, you're not cold at that point. And it could be like 48 hours later, you just fill the funnel, right? So different strokes for different folks.
Well, I talked about Dale Dupree last week's episode and what he does with the Sales Rebellion. And I'll give him another plug here. His cold call is super interesting. So he always provides a experiential piece before the call, right? And that's his thing. Right? That's like his brand is rebelling against the normalcy of sales, being like, I'm going to be an X in a bunch in a world of O's, right? I'm going to be that X. I'm going to stand out. So he gives an experiential piece, and in his cold call. And I'm probably botching this. It's been probably years since I've heard him actually do it. But it's very much like, hey, man, did you get the crumpled letter?
Right.
Oh, yeah, it was funny. What's up? Right. And a lot of it is like, hey, before I talk about what I do, he talks about a little bit of his backstory. And he does lead with who in that sense. And because he's created that experience for them, this pattern interrupt of, hey, the reason I'm doing this is because most of the stuff that you get, I know it ends up in the trash, or most of these phone calls are probably extremely boring for you. I'm not really here to move anything along. I'm just here to kind of share with you a little bit more about who I am, who I serve, and why I do it. And it's funny because when you listen to it without that experience, it's like you're like, would I listen to that cold call? And it's like, I mean, you look at his success and you're like, well, shit, like people do.
It must be working.
And I think that's the piece that people are missing, is that it all comes down to this like core belief in something bigger than you.
Yeah.
This core belief in, like, if I'm Dale Dupree, it's like, I see these guys calling 100 people a day, having 5 conversations and booking -3 meetings. Right. Well, I don't want to do that. Yeah. And I believe that because I'm selling to a human, humans need an experience. Yep. And here's how the experience, and I'm going to stand out amongst them. And now they're going to listen to me, unlike they would the guy that just cold called them and said, hey, can I have 27 seconds to tell you why I'm calling? Yep. Okay, cool. You said 27 instead of 30 seconds, but dude, all right, I'm going to hang up the phone. Right. And I think just as a brand and as you're building an organization, it is those core beliefs, right? And I think it's even more than values, right? It's these like core beliefs, these like the things that you put, like you talked about last week, is like, it is that single point of contact. Yep. Like, we will not get away from that single point of contact. And if that means we have to charge $100,000 a month, $1.2 million a year for you to work with us to get that single point of contact, you will pay us that amount of money and we will still provide you with that secret sauce. Yep. And everything comes from that belief, and everything emanates from you from that belief. And the reason that Dollar Shave Club came out with that funny ad in all of their ads, like if you look at all of the ads that Dollar Shave Club came out with, they all had that same appeal to them. Yep. Exactly. And
and we're talking about, even looking at creating Dollar Shave Club-esque ads for our brands, right? So it's like it's resonated this long. As you were sharing that, so many good gems in there. What came to mind is brick and mortar. And I love some exposed brick. So as the Northeasterner, but I think the shift is that we have to stop thinking in terms of the bricks and really start building as mortar. Like, what's the glue? What's the mortar in your value proposition? And I think for years, particularly in B2B, it's been these bricks that have been being built, and maybe you worked at one, maybe you exited one. Like you built like a major technology, you built a platform, but most of the platforms, the tech stacks, the solutions, the policies, like the whats, as I would put it, they're pretty much in place now. So the companies that find a way to bond all of that together are the ones that are going to win big. And that's what community is. That's what relationship is. That's what single points of contact and high touch. So like Row, right? I go golfing with Nick from Row. I know Dom from Gusto. Nate has left Gusto to go there. I met Emma. Like, they've got a cool little crew developing. And what they're calling it is concierge banking. Yet they're a fintech company that's backed by a big bank, Webster Bank. Sure, I'm sure they're FDIC, like whatever, like, oh, this is up to 755 million. They're telling me, I'm like, perfect, because like I have 74 million right now. So I'm sure, like,
so I couldn't quite back you.
Yeah, for a second I was getting nervous, So it's like they recognize, and they're crushing it, and we're partnered with them now because for me, I had seen 10 other banks. I get hit up by Ramp, Mercury, North One, you name it. There's a bunch of them, but nobody built a relationship with me. So I'm like unapproachable. Like, your email, your marketing, your freebie, it gets lost on me because I will only work with people that understand concierge service, that understand high touch. And I believe that is going to become more and more valuable, and people are going to be willing to pay more and more for it. Yeah. And that's where it is. So you got to find that no matter what you're building, like high touch. Yeah. Tech will take care of itself. AI is nuts. Yeah. It's nuts what it's going to be doing. You have to build this experience in the heart, like not so much in the mind.
Create a movement. So
I think we covered some good stuff today, man.
It's like, you definitely don't have a marketing problem. That's for sure. You just don't know. You don't have beliefs. You don't have convictions. You've diluted the message that has been used over and over and over again. And right now, it is your opportunity. I think the market is ripe for it. The market is begging for you to come out saying something completely different than everyone else. Be a red X in a world of black circles and just absolutely come in and dominate and go after the early adopters, the innovators, create a community, and just to allow those people to mold and allow those people to build that with the mortar. Like, was that what you call it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know what.
No, you're
is.
right.
Like,
Yeah, that's good. Right. They have to be the ones that are like creating the concrete and building the mortar and then co-creating the fortress with you.
Yeah.
You know, they're helping you select the bricks and lay the mortar and put the next brick. It's just a better experience for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think people often only think about this relative to like product development or a new channel. You can say, hey, I'm calling you because we have 37 clients and I'm looking for the 38th and I'm hoping it's you. Based on the research I've done, I think you'd be the right fit. Would you mind if we talked about, like, you can build your client base. Like, I'm totally transparent about our client base because I really genuinely believe, call me crazy, that God like preordained who the fill in the blank client was. And we've done that as a team. Like, as we've hit 50 and 100 and 150, it's like really start like obsessing over who that person is and then never lose that, because then you could be like, oh man, like we're going to go out and get the 400,000th N1, you know, and there's really no limit to how much you can care about people. Like there's not, like you're not going to exhaust that. It's never going to harm you. So that's where I think transparency, community, all the things that you beautifully recap there come in. So I know this is a bit of a stream of consciousness for us. I hope this was valuable today to our listeners in episode 5. It's Friday. It's 6:11 p.m. Let's go see our family.
Let's do it, dude.
All right,
brother.
See you guys.